So the importance of building resilience into our organizations have actually increased more now than ever before, given for instance, what we saw during the pandemic, the fact that the world is a smaller, more global village than it was ever before. And the fact that the frequency of disruption has increased. The distance between when one disruption happens and the next one happens has increased. For instance, we talk about artificial intelligence here, and that is a very big disruption that is just becoming, people don't understand how much of a disruption that is yet. For instance, you see that people can make videos now, and you can see someone talking on a video with their own voice, their own video, and this person never said those things. What you'll find is that the price of trust is going to go up because you really can't trust even what you see and hear any longer. And what does that do to our business? And someone in some room somewhere can literally disrupt everything that you've built and and bring down a 1,000 people organization. So there's so many things attacking institutions now, and it's now more important for us to build resilience to be able to defend ourselves against the known and the unknown risks that face institutions.
Brilliant, thank you. Let me move on to to David. And David, I just want to find out from you, what strategies can organizations employ to build a culture of resilience from top leadership to frontline employees?
All right, so good afternoon, everybody. I think I like to take it from the basics. So what is resilience? And I like to explain resilience from 3 perspectives. So first, resilience is doing the simple things. Sometimes when organizations become huge, there's a tendency for bureaucracy and complexity to set in. And so we ignore the simple things. It's important our minds are reverted that what ticks the box is the simple things. Number 2, we need to do the hard things. So there's a Ghanaian called Fred Swanika who's built one of the most innovative companies in Africa called Africa Leadership University. And he has a tagline for his university called Do Hard Things. Now, and because increasingly we are seeing a dominant workforce of Gen Zs at a workplace, and I have a couple of them in my office, it's important for them to be reminded that life is not too soft as they think. If anybody told you that success was easy and cheap, the person probably wasn't a successful person, because it takes a lot of failure and a lot of refining to be successful. So that said, you've got to do the hard things. I had a eureka moment when one intern who came to intern at our place at Petrosol actually told me that he never knew that the workplace is an 8 to 5 arrangement. Yeah. And for her, she thought that she would come to work, and then at some point she can quietly leave, and so on and so forth. It dawned on me that academia and industry still need to patch up. And there's a lot more work we need to do. So we need to remind people that there are hard things to be done. Number 3, the word resilience simply means that responding to shocks, building capacity to respond to shocks. And here I want to encourage my fellow HR practitioners that in doing this, we need to pay particular attention to culture. And I like to define culture because when you leave culture to chance, often you don't like the outcome. Now, we need to build a culture that is very intentional. So number 1, a culture of learning, a culture of execution. Again, it resonates with doing hard things and doing the simple things. A culture of accountability, and I think the earlier speaker spoke about that. And last but not least, a culture of high performance. Yes. If you put this together, you have an acronym that says LEAP. So for us to build resilient organizations, we need a culture that helps us to leap. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Georgina, I love the title you carry, that's organization effectiveness within your organization, yes. In as much as possible, I've heard the conversation about technology, the use of AI and technological tools. How do you think effectively it would help create resilience in a day like this, especially when we have some members of our teams working from home, sometimes in the week, based on the tasks to be performed, for example. How do you think these tools would help us shape resilience, especially looking at resilience from the angle of being a shock absorber or being ready for shocks, yes, within the structure of the organization, yes.
All right, good afternoon. It's not yet afternoon.
Not yet. Oh,
it is, okay, good. So the part that we seem to miss when we talk about resilience is thriving. We talk a lot about withstanding shocks, being able to stand the shocks. But after the shocks, what happens? You have to thrive. You have to grow. You would have withstood the shocks, and then what next? So what makes it important for us to concentrate on resilience is the thriving bit. And all the policies, the processes that we put in place are really, at the end of the day, to help our people thrive. And in thriving, be able to help us, the organization, to meet the objectives that it has. At the end of it, that's the bottom line. Thrive, meet the objectives. So how do we make sure that with all the things that have happened in the past few years, that's why we've seen most of the shocks in the past few years, both financial, recessions, health-wise, the various generations understanding exactly what they want out of the working world. So all these policies, processes, procedures that we are talking about, are they fit for purpose? Resilience really thrives on adaptability, being able to shift and change, be like a shapeshifter, if you want. Those who play games a lot would know. Shift shape and be able to move forward. You know, there's this saying, I don't have it definitely in my head. It's about the bamboo that bends is stronger than the oak that stands. When you're at the beach, which of the trees stand at the beach? It's just the coconuts, right? Most of the other ones, if there's a storm, they will fall. But the coconut is able to bend along with the wind. That's what an organization that's resilient is supposed to be able to do. Bend with the wind, the changing times, and be able to fluidly, quickly adapt, change, make sure that you have the resources available to work. You would say, be resilient. Mm-hmm. How do people be resilient? Mm-hmm. They have to be, it's not an innate thing. Resilience is learned, is built. Mm-hmm. We have to be able to equip ourselves. And we always take HR out of the boat. But really, all of us here are employees, right? We have to also be in that boat and build resilience such that the organization can be resilient.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Now, this is the part of the conversation where it gets even more interesting. So I'm going to involve you, ladies and gentlemen, to be a part of this. May I have someone pick up the speaker's microphone off the lectern and take it round, since we've taken all 5 spots here. And Dr. Kwapon, this is the part I need you the most. Now, recounting what Dr. Kwapon shared with us, if there are any questions from there, I believe this is a very good time. We'll take them, but at the same time, based on the conversations we have here, we can have questions also come, and then we deal with them as we go along. There's a certain culture of resilience directly on this stage and at HR Focus Conference this year where we don't have time. So we need to also be able to adapt and bend easily to the fact that we don't have much time this time around. Ladies and gentlemen, please, does anyone with a question, kindly put up your hand. I have stewards within the audience who would identify you, and let's get the questions going. I can do first 2 now. Yes. Otherwise, before we get whip of a question, I see, okay, steward run into someone. Please mention your name, identify yourself so we get to know you.
Yeah, I'm Francis Owen from VRA Propco. A subsidiary of Volta River Authority, championing the cause of real estate development and facility management in VRA. Doctor, I like your presentation, and so there were a few things that I noted, and I would like you to address it for me. So the question is, I'm a staff who is engaged, but then I like to break rules. And I do it because of disengaged people and also distracted people. Aside that, I do it because of partial irresponsibility from top leadership. So what do you think would be the solution for my problem?
Well, I attempted offering some solutions in the course of the presentation. We are saying that this is an individual, a worker, who out of frustration is disgruntled and therefore disobeys rules. Is that right? Is that right? There are always rules that govern the relationship between the employer and the employee and the conduct of the employee. And so the employee must respect them regardless. And if they fall foul of the rules of the game, then they should be punished. They should be punished. But we should also do a bit of research to find out why they are disgruntled. And that's why in the course of the presentation I mentioned the aspect of counseling them. You counsel them. Find out whether there is any justification for the way they feel and the way they behave. At times we have not been fair to them. Then we try to correct ourselves, isn't it? So let us hear their side of the story, see whether there is merit in what they are saying, and see how best we can correct them. But otherwise, for us to prevent them from affecting affecting negatively other employees, take decisive action to punish them and to get rid of them if the need arises.
You can just give us a wave so we know, okay, if you don't have the microphone. If it is okay, you can just give me a thumbs up so I can identify. Very good. He says so. It has been answered. Yes. Thank you. A huge round of applause for Dr. Kwapong on this one. If there's a question or a contribution, just give me a wave so that the stewards can identify you quickly. Yes.
Okay, so I don't know whether it's my name is Iris from ARB Apex Bank. Whether it's a follow-up or the answer to the previous question will be the same answer. But I was thinking, there was one slide that you said there's engaged, I think there was some that they are near retirement, and so...
Yeah, true, that it's engaged.
Good, so you can maybe get them some packages for them to exit us. Okay, so my question is, here is somebody who is not nearing retirement, is at the prime, but so much engaged, and you can even add them to the disgruntled. But you can you whip up the person to become, how can you do that? Whip up the person to become a performer instead of being part of the engaged and the disengaged. So how do you handle these people? They are not nearing retirement and they are in their prime, but they are disengaged.
Right. If they are in their prime and yet disengaged, then you have to administer a number of instruments to find out why they are disengaged. You know, you have various psychometric tests to determine what causes the disengagement, the dissatisfaction. And so we need to apply several instruments. Indeed, we have the psychometric test, we have the personal profiling, we have the Pharo-B instruments to administer to find out why they are disengaged. They are in their prime. It means that they are not too old, they are not too young. They are in between there, but they are disengaged. Then what we do to them? Go to their rescue. Find out what is wrong. Psychologically, are they all right? What kind of persons are they? What are they looking for in the organization? Have we fulfilled our value proposition to them, the offerings that we made to them at the beginning of the relationship? Have we varied them to their detriment? So we really need to examine a whole gamut of factors to find out why they are disengaged, even though very young in the organization. All right. But then we should also examine ourselves as management, the corporate culture, the values, the core values of the organization. Are we living them? They are beautiful. You see them at the reception of all companies, the core values. But do we live them? How do we live those core values? How do we ensure a positive culture? How do we reassure the young ones that there is something in there for them? So then we go into a bit of, mentoring, give them role models and let them look up to and find out what is wrong with them and what they can do.
Thank you, Dr. Kwapong. Yes. Thank you. Thank you. Please, I think we can appreciate him. Yes, Georgina, you have something to share? Yes.
So to add on, I'll speak a bit to my reality. So for identifying what is wrong or why people are disengaged. So for us, we don't exactly have people falling into those categories. There are people that, again, to your point, they may be very young, however, they are disengaged. The easiest way we found is you have to measure the engagement of the people in your organization. And that, I think, has become something that is critical, to be able to know the various dimensions in your organization, how they feel, how they are engaged. And you might find that somebody might be nearing retirement, but will be highly, highly engaged. So those categories sometimes are not very black and white. And finding out exactly what is driving engagement, what is driving disengagement, and what are the actions to mitigate those is important. When you find out how engaged or disengaged your people are, there are some that are really on the borderline, and just paying attention to a few things would move them into the bucket of people that are engaged. So those are the people that you really do have to pay attention to. The small number that may be disengaged, or for some organizations, maybe the large number that are disengaged, it's clear to see some of the things that are causing or driving the disengagement, depending on how you assess your engagements. So those are the ways in which, and you may not always punish. There are things that would move your employees from being totally disengaged into engaged.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes. I believe that we've exhausted the time for public questions, but there's an open forum that comes up right after this, which again I'd have to limit to time to maybe about 3 major questions. But let me say this. I'm happy Dr. Kwapong mentioned something about the core values of your respective organizations and how beautifully they are printed or put out there in designs and in wonderful frames and all that. I just want to find out from you, how does your respective core values enhance or propel resilience in your organizations? Let me start with Georgina now, yes, and let's eat this way towards Emmanuel. Yeah.
When you ask me about the values of Newmont, you've kind of asked me to talk for like 3 days.
Please so make that a minute.
I will simply pick on one, yeah. Okay, inclusion. An organization that is resilient is usually inclusive. So inclusion drives resilience. Having the diversity of thought, diversity of the people that are there, all of that together with the kind of interventions, policies that you put in place really does drive resilience. So I will stay with inclusion. Otherwise, if you move me to safety and sustainability and the rest, I won't
that would be great, and I thank you and I appreciate you. David, let's hear you as well.
Yeah, so I think before you even move people to become resilient, they need to understand what the core values mean. If we did a public survey or gambit here, what you will figure out is most employees in the organizations may not be able to remember, one, what their core values are. Number 2, they may not be able to link the core values to their individual work. You see, there's research to show that when people have clear understanding of what they do better work. So I like to always stay with the fundamentals. Do people, one, know the core values? Do they understand it? Are they able to link it to their personal work? So I used to work with Lineage Services, and my chief executive is here, Dr. Mrs. Ollenhagen. I've left 2 years now, but I still remember our core values. You know why? Because the core values were captured in an acronym. ICT Doctor. Integrity, customer satisfaction, teamwork, dedication, responsiveness. So after Yemi Segan has to give me a gift. You know?
Which one of them stands out for resilience for you? Yes.
I think integrity.
Okay.
When a person is a person of integrity, but just before I come there. So when I joined Petrosol, armed with this insight, one of the first things I did was to look at how I could create an acronym out of our core values. Because I engaged people, and when you ask people, they don't know what the core values were. Some were confused. Some even mentioned words that were not in the checklist. So I said, okay, because once it is in an acronym, people can remember. So at Petrosol, our core values is reflected in re-equip. Re-equip, so respect for environment, empathy, quality service, integrity, and professionalism. And I think integrity is fundamental. When people have integrity, no matter what you throw at them, they're able to bounce back. And so for me, what is important is that people should be able to remember, understand, and link the core values to what they do on a daily basis.
Thank you, David. Yes, Emmanuel, your bite on this.
Thank you. And my perspective to this is our organization is about 250 people in different countries. And as CEO, I had to play a particular role in shaping our culture and defining our values. 5 years ago, we spent a lot of time sort of like being very intentional about documenting our core values and explaining it very clearly. So yes, we also have a mnemonic, it's juice, it's just J-U-I-C-E. So everybody takes the juice and everybody gets the juice, right? But beyond that, we then have supporting documentation that explains the core values clearly. Because if you say, for instance, excellence is a core value, different people might define excellence in different ways. So it's important that the organization says to us, this is what excellence means, and this is what it does not mean. So that people are clear about what these words mean, because everybody candor, for instance, is one of our core values, that people speak their minds openly and are afraid, and it's one of those ones that's important for resilience as well, because if you have an organization where people can speak their mind, when trouble is coming, the people who are seeing it can talk, because the culture doesn't allow them. Maybe it's a culture of respect, where the boss is speaking, everybody has to keep quiet, and the boss doesn't know everything. So candor, in a culture where people just have respect for old age, you have to help people to understand what candor means. To say you can tell your boss that they're wrong because you have information that they don't have. So we spend a lot of time sort of like making sure people understand what those words mean. And I think signing off for me is, as a leader, the guiding principle for culture is the golden rule for me, to say, what organization will I really love to work in? And to make sure that every employee gets a sense that this organization cares about them and is built for them. So that when trouble comes, you have not employees, but partners who own the organization as much as the leaders do, and defend the organization as much as the leaders do. And as they say, if you have those kind of spirited, passionate people, any trouble that comes, you have partners who can defend you and take you to, one of those popular quotes that, get the right people on the bus, get the wrong people off, don't worry about the destination. The right people will find the right destination in a storm. Yeah.
I think that does it. Please, a huge round of applause, ladies and gentlemen, for Dr. Kwapong. You want to have a last bite? Please, let's do that in a minute.
Yes, in the current circumstances, should we always respect the established order? Should we allow people to challenge the established order and give reasons why they are challenging it? Then we'll move forward in that situation of a bit of subversion of the established order. Otherwise, we stay the same and it doesn't help us. We should be moving. We should be rolling on. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Please, a huge round of applause for our keynote speaker, Dr. Kwapong, and also our panelists. Let's have Georgina, David, and Emmanuel. Please, a huge round of applause for them. You may take your seats now.